So you got an interview. Congratulations. Now what? Well, now it's time to learn how to ace the behavioral interview. And in a future video, we'll be talking about how you can ace the coding interview. Well, let's get right into it. What is the behavioral interview? Basically, this is sometimes done with one person or a panel of people from the company you're interviewing with. What they're going to use it as is a way to get to know you, how you will react in certain situations. Will you be a good fit on the team they're interviewing you for? Can you work on a team is a big one. And can you ask for help is a huge one, especially as a newer software developer. Companies want to know if you can ask for help and if you're willing to work and try to resolve problems without help. Now let's get into the general method that most places use, and this is the one I've seen commonly when I've interviewed in other companies and for software positions, is the STAR method. It is a situation, task, action, result. Situation is the situation and the circumstances surrounding it, and it all pertains to whatever they're asking you to talk about. So you talk about the situation, brief couple sentences maybe. Then you talk about the tasks and responsibilities that were assigned to you or that you had during the situation. Then you talk about the actions you took, whether it's coding, asking for help, building something, whatever. You talk about the actions you took specifically, not the team, you specifically took. And then you talk result. What was the result of the actions that you took? The end result in the situation. Did you succeed? Did you fail? What did you learn? If you succeeded, you can still say, yes, we succeeded. What did we learn? Yada, yada, yada. I learned this. Or if you failed, you say, yes, in hindsight, I learned that, maybe I should ask for help earlier on this thing. Whatever. That sort of thing. So let's jump into the different types of questions you might see. This is not an all-encompassing list, but these are some common types of questions that I've seen in the past during my interviews. So the first type is experience-based questions. Generally, these will almost always use that STAR method, and way you can recognize a STAR question is generally they'll start with "tell me about a time" or phrases similar to that. So, for example, an experience-based question would be, "Tell me about a time where you faced blockers at work or school." So, and generally, I include school in there too because not all of you will be experienced developers interviewing. Some of you will be straight out of school with no internship experience. It happens. You can still get a job. But let's say, tell me about a time where you faced blockers at work. Okay, so you might say, well, during a team project at school, I was tasked with, we were building an app, a mobile app that will book appointments for our school project. And then you'll say, my responsibility was to build the API in the back end on the server. Then you'll say that I was blocked because I couldn't figure out how to get the database to work. The database wasn't working for our situation. And then you'll say, well, now the actions I took. Okay, so the actions I took. I decided to do a lot of Googling. I checked Stack Overflow, and finally, when nothing else worked, I asked for help from someone who was more experienced with databases and APIs than I. And the end result was that I got my assignment done on time. Our team succeeded. The API worked great. That's kind of how you would go about it. Take out all the filler words that I throw in, like but that's kind of the general thing you would do. Or tell me about a time where you failed at a task. Tell me about a time where you asked for help or when you asked for help. That sort of thing. And those are all experience based. And what they want there is you to talk about your past experiences and how it. And yeah, you just want to talk about your past experiences. That's what they were asking for there. And they want to know how you handled certain situations and maybe if you learned anything from them. If you failed at doing the database, then you might say, well, I wish I would have asked for help sooner. Lesson learned there is I should have asked for help sooner. Should have worked with the team to potentially get reassigned if it was unable to do it. That sort of thing. Your next type is hypothetical questions. These are pretty common too, And employers will generally use a hypothetical to learn how you will respond in certain situations, or sometimes they just want your thoughts on certain things. It's another way to get to know you and how you think you would handle a certain situation. So for these, I've seen tech-based and generic, like general type questions in the past. So tech-based, you might say, how do you go about optimizing an app? Oh, okay, I'll look for too many database calls happening at the same time. Boom, easy as that. Add a little bit more flair, a little fluff to it. Make yourself sound good. Like you know what you're talking about, even if you don't. Uh, Here's one that I actually got in an interview. I didn't get the job, by the way. Hindsight. My interview skills were not really up to par at that point. Let's say you're developing an online store. How might you store your orders in the database? And do you see any problems that arise with certain methods? This is not exact wording, it's just what I'm remembering, 3 years later. But basically, you would say, okay, oh, I might store them with a UUID. And, the question might be a little bit more specific. How would you store orders in the database so nothing, to prevent any issues in the future with overlapping or anything like that? So you say, okay, I'll use an UUID. I think that would be a great method to do it. And you might talk about some of the benefits like UUID is always unique. We don't have to worry about overlapping orders. It's not incremental, so there's no way a customer can get somebody else's order on accident, that sort of thing. Or a follow-up question that I got is, what are the benefits to using that UUID over incrementing an integer in your database? And, it's the kind of thing I just said, is that the UUID is always unique, and one of the things this allows for is scalability, right? Scalability would let you, with an incrementing an integer, we can only do so much. We might run into issues if too many people place an order at the same time. How would it know who gets what number? That's that sort of thing. Is you try to basically what they want here is you to think out loud and don't ramble. Don't get overly complex. Talk high level as much as you can about certain things like that. Talk high level. Don't ramble. Put a lot of content out. A lot of good content. Some general questions that I've seen is how would you handle a disagreement with a coworker? So you might say, well, depending on severity of the disagreement and what the disagreement's about, I would probably try to reason with them. If reasoning is not if we're not capable of reasoning, I might just drop the disagreement and move on to something else. Or if it's really bad and there's no moving past this, then you might need to involve management or something else like that. Or how would you deal with a large workload's a common one. How would you go about breaking down a large task? And all they're asking for in these situations is what you think you would do or what you think you should do. You can bring past experience into these as well. So, if you talking about the disagreement with the coworker, you say, well, in the past I had this disagreement with the coworker and it got really bad. We were unable to work effectively together. So I approached management and we had a mediation type session and, something like that. If you've got experience. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. It's hypothetical. They just want to know what you think. The next type here is a values-based question or a values question. Basically, what this is every company has values. Whether they publicly display them or not is a different story. But most large companies have values. And their common ones are like integrity, respect, teamwork, innovation, passion, accountability, collaboration, passion, again, those sorts of things. Uh, but basically, they're used to define how employees should act and how they should approach situations. So, with the values question, they want to know, do you hold those values? Are you willing to work within those values? What do you think of the values? So, what your interviewer might say is, describe your ideal team. And you would say, well, I want to work on a team. My ideal team is, a team that works very good together. They're very collaborative. We all have our individual strengths and we work together to make our project even better and, bolster the company and, that sort of thing. And we support each other when, somebody else might be struggling. We work together to support them and bring them up. Companies love hearing stuff like that. Interviewers love that when you talk about how you work together with your team and do everything you can to be better. That's a very good one. What makes an ideal manager? You might say something like, an ideal manager to me is one who's supporting the team, is always there to listen and provide ideas and solutions when we have problems, and that kind of thing is pretty good. And here's another repeat: is describe a time where you had dealt with a difficult coworker. Uh, this might be a twofer kind of deal. So you might be talking about the past where you're dealing with a difficult coworker. What they're gonna want to know and what they're gonna pick up on is does your did your actions show integrity, respect, teamwork, yada yada yada, all those common traits. Did it show any of that? Does it fit with our values, or did you do something crazy? Um, and that's kind of thing that is important. And one thing that I've always stressed as when I was a newer software developer interviewing at places, my passion for learning and innovating. Basically, you just express in the values the questions that, I'm always happy to learn. I approach new problems and difficult problems with a sense of curiosity, and I always want to learn new technologies so that I can apply them to my work and make a better product, and that kind of thing. Next thing is research. Uh, you should always, always, always research the company you're going to interview with. Most of them, you can find their values on their website, their LinkedIn page, their Indeed page. You could just look online and you can find a company and what their values are. This is extremely important to bring to your interview with you. If you know that a particular company places a huge value on teamwork, then what you want to do in your interview is stress that you love working on a team and that you're great at teamwork and that teamwork is your life. You want to stress their values. If you know their values going in, then you know what you can say and how you can stress that you believe in the same values that they believe in. And you should understand what they are, and you should really understand what they mean to the company. One of the last things we got here is practicing. This is super important. If you've got a friend, coworker, parent, uh, teacher, anybody that you can practice with, that's a great way to do it. It's good to practice with people. Personally, I found it kind of helpful. Unfortunately, when I was interviewing originally, I was doing it during COVID, so practicing was a little bit more difficult with friends, but we made it through. Another thing you can do if you don't have anybody else, I haven't tried this one myself, but I've heard a lot of people tell me it's very helpful, is recording yourself answering practice questions. If you want to Google practice software dev interview questions or sample software dev interview questions online, you can come up with a list of questions. And what I recommend doing, and I've seen this help a lot of people, is you record yourself answering the question, in a reasonable amount of time, like a minute or two or whatever, simulate an interview. Stop the recording afterwards and listen to yourself. And then note on, okay, well, I didn't sound very confident in that answer. That's not might not reflect good on me. Or why did I say that wording when this wording might have been better? That kind of thing. You just record yourself, listen to what you're saying. Does it sound like I'm rambling? That kind of thing. Going in prepared is the best way to succeed, in my opinion. The interview that I mentioned earlier that I did not get the job, I did not go in prepared. I went in very unprepared, and obviously it shows I didn't get the job. And I learned my lesson. I prepared for the next one. And one of the best ways I've found to get practiced and get better at it is just to do real interviews. Sometimes the real thing is the only way to get better at it for some people. And honestly, I found that after failing that first interview, I got a lot better at it. I learned what I should be saying, what I shouldn't be saying, that sort of thing. And here's just some final tips is do not be afraid to fail. And that's where coming in with a real interview thing as practice. And you don't even have to go into a real interview as saying, "Oh, this is just a practice interview." You go in that you're saying that I'm going to get this job, and if you don't, That's okay. There's 100 more jobs waiting right down the line for you, especially in the software industry, even with all the layoffs happening. You know, what you should do afterward is set aside a little bit of time to reflect on what you said, the questions asked. Think about the questions they asked, what your answers were to the questions, how might you have done better, but do not dwell on your answers, or else you will only bring yourself down, make yourself less confident, and therefore less good at interviewing. One of the things that I found too helpful is to come with questions. Interviewers like to answer questions. They like when you have questions. So maybe your question could be, what technologies does the team use on a day-to-day basis? Does your company have a continuing education program? I'm thinking about getting my master's degree or some certifications. What does an average day look like for this role? What are some things that I can do to succeed? What does your ideal candidate look like for this role? You come with very good questions. You can Google and find much better lists than mine, but come with questions. Show that you are interested in the company and that you're invested in the process, and that'll make people happy. Anyway, I hope these tips help you. And if you do get the job or you have any more questions, suggestions, comments, put them down in the comments below. I'm happy to interact and we can talk about it. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe for more content like this.